if you're a business owner, there's things like strategy, there's things like sort of vision and so on that cannot be delegated either. But everything else you do can be delegated.
In the Micka Show, we highlight practical methods to create a meaningful impact in our personal and professional life. Thanks for joining us today, and let the show begin. Hello, everyone. Hello, Mats. Welcome back on the show.
Thank you very much. Fantastic to be here again.
And today we are going to be talking about delegation.
Exactly. One of my favorite topics when it comes to management.
It seems like everything is one of your favorite topics when it comes to management. Am I right?
Well, that's true.
So speaking of delegation, when and why should we delegate?
Fundamentally, delegation is all about increasing your value, right? So when you're looking at running a company, when you look at this being an employee in a business and you have your whole life, you still want to look at it as delegation, right? But fundamentally, the value of an individual within a company is determined based on what they actually do. So the way to increase your value as an individual is to do things that are more valuable. Now, the biggest challenge for most business owners is, particularly in the early stages of business, they end up doing a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing because they know how to do it best.
For example?
So answering emails from customers, or copy-pasting data into Excel, or lots and lots of stuff. So the fundamental is that as a business owner, you want to constantly be looking at what are the things that I can do that adds the most value. And where people often fall short in terms of growing their business is because they're so focused on trying to do everything perfect, do everything their way, instead of necessarily letting go of things that are worth less, that are less valuable to the business, and things that can be done by other people so that they can actually do the things that move the business forward. So in a lot of businesses, you will often see an entrepreneur that's spending a lot of time, for example, with the service delivery. But in a lot of companies, really, they want to spend the time in the beginning in doing sales and marketing because that's what brings new business in. So you often see with small businesses this cycle where the business owner is first selling, get a client, and then they spend so much time delivering that they don't generate new business, right? So actually going back to scratch, it's all about increasing the value. So the way you increase the value of a human being is by increasing the value of your hours, right? And the fundamental mindset behind delegation is making sure that you put yourself in a place where you can do more valuable things in the company and let go of the things that you're doing that is the least valuable.
Is it also, if you allow me to ask, the things that only you can do? Only you can do, but at the highest way. Like, for example, I cannot ask somebody else from the team to host the show for me.
It is called the Micka Show, so that will make it a little bit difficult.
If it's another show, like...
Right, you can. Like, let's say this was called the Personal Development Show. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can ask other people to host the show for you. If you look at most of the big shows out there, they are hosted by multiple people, right? So there's nothing saying that you cannot do it. Now, it can make sense that you do it. It might be one of the most valuable things you can do, and that's fine. But there's always other options, right? As a business owner, you need to look at where am I getting the most value? Where am I getting the most benefit, right?
So it's about saving your time for more important tasks.
Yes, and more, like fundamentally in a business skill, more valuable tasks.
And which tasks should we delegate?
Fundamentally, there's a lot that can be delegated. I like to look at it and say, if you're working as a manager within a company, the things you cannot delegate is one-to-ones with the staff that you are managing, and it's deciding who works in your team. Everything else fundamentally can be delegated. If you're a business owner, there's things like strategy, there's things like sort of vision and so on that cannot be delegated either, but everything else you do can be delegated. And one of the big challenge, and many small businesses put themselves in this situation, is that the business owner feels he's the only one that can do the job. And a lot of the time, what happens is that small businesses are not clear on their service offering. So for example, they could say, okay, we do, video marketing, right? And the range of services, the range of things they do with video can be huge. Because in the beginning, people always do this. They're like, any customers that do anything with video, come to me. I will help you, right? So they don't have a clear offering. They're always figuring things out. And because it's not a clear delivery, the business owner often have to be the one making choices or doing the work, right? But fundamentally, if you want to be successful in any kind of business, it's niching down and focusing on delivering one thing extremely successfely. I've spent a lot of time in the field of online marketing and SEO particularly, where again, people often look for very wide variety of client bases. Now, if you go in and say, we only do online marketing for coffee shops in Vietnam, right? If you only do marketing for coffee shops, most of the processes will be the same over and over and over again. So you can teach someone when you have a new coffee shop, what are the steps? How do we take the pictures? How do we, make the menu look, et cetera, et cetera. So you can literally build a solid process with the steps that someone else can follow.
So it's about building a system.
It's about fundamentally building a system, or it's building a service. So the problem as well, when you're doing a lot of different things, you end up having to learn every time. The thing is, when you actually niche down, what happens is two things. One, it becomes a lot easier to fill. And two, you deliver a lot more value. Because if you have one very specific service offering, what that means is, one, it's very effective for you to do. You know exactly what to do. If you might have a huge team, you might be able to scale it significantly with people doing very, very specific tasks on a regular basis, all right? Now, the second thing is your value to the clients becomes significantly more, because if you only work with coffee shops, you understand their lingo, you know how to do things. And a lot of the time, you don't even need to recreate things. You can literally reuse very similar content or very similar things again and again, right? Whereas if one day you work with a dentist, the next day you work with a coffee shop, that is very different businesses to market, right? So niching down and really focusing on one very small segment enables you to add more value, do things cheaper. So the whole thing is that your profit margins over time can become significantly higher if you do that and you add more value. Now, the thing is, people don't care that much about, am I paying $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000? What they care about is what you make them. So if they pay you $1,000 and you make them $10,000, great. If you pay them $3,000 and you make them $50,000, even better, right? So the thing is, by niching down and by really focusing, you can enable any business to become more cost-effective to run. You can make the service easier to run. And again, the business owner isn't needed to do everything because it's repeatable and scalable. When you really niche down, when you really get clear on this is the market we serve, this is exactly how we do it as a process, then you enable faster service delivery, cheaper, more effective, more valuable service. And it's in fact, it's a good check. If you cannot delegate things because it's too complex, you probably haven't found the service to deliver, right? Like if you cannot sit down and explain to another human what they need to do to deliver, you probably are not delivering a service that's specific and valuable enough.
It seems like the way you explain things, that delegation is actually working smart, not working hard.
It's fundamentally both.
Both.
It's very smart to say work smart, not hard, but fundamentally you want to work hard while working smart.
While working smart,
yeah.
All right. What are the common mistakes when it comes to delegation?
The most common mistakes that I generally see people doing is fundamentally focusing too much on handing over tasks instead of responsibility, right? So we're sitting here, we have some great camera people who are dealing with their stuff. Now, reality is you could spend a lot of time figuring out how to do all of that yourself. You might not want to, but you could. And this is what many business owners do. They figure out how to do everything in their business, and then they try and delegate it as a task. And then they're like, okay, you sit there, you click this button, you do this. The problem is if something happens that's weird or out of place, the person don't know because you've just told them exactly what to do. So instead of hiring someone and make them responsible for their output and for what they're doing, you're literally just giving them a task and saying, sit here, press the button. And that's fundamentally what most business owners do. So unfortunately, particularly in the online space, there have been all these sort of guides and tutorials over the years where it says, if you want to run a business, you figure out how to do something, you build a process and you give it to someone else. And it's very task driven. All right. Reality, everyone learns. Every human being learns from researching, doing things, right? So no one have ever become great at doing what they're doing just by simply getting a process and say, do this thing, right? So fundamentally, when you give people ownership, the difference between the two is instead of saying, hey man, I want you to look at this process and I want you to sit down, click the button on the camera and do exactly these steps, right? Instead of saying that, say, hey, I've seen you're great at videoing or cameras or whatever. I want you to be responsible for our video output. Here's the process of what we do today, but you're a smart human being, so you can probably do it even better over the time. And fundamentally, I want you to be responsible for all the video output. And the difference from the person getting those tools, you feel important. Number two, you are important. And number three, yes, you will make mistakes. But the thing is, when you start hiring people, when you're looking at it from a higher perspective, when I'm delegating something, that's typically the things that are least important for me. But if I'm delegating to someone that works for me, it's probably going to be one of the most important things to them. Second thing is, if you have someone that spends all their time focused on something versus me spending a small part of my time doing it, everything else being equal, over time, they'll become significantly better than I ever have been and ever could be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I want to see the logic. So basically, you give the opportunity to people become even better at what they do.
Yes. So you have this famous saying, when you're the smartest people in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Mm-hmm. And like, you want to surround yourself with great people. And even in business, that's the case. Now, reality is, as a small business, you might not be able to go out and hire the best people in every area straight away, right? Like if you want to run Facebook ads, you might not have 20 grand a month to pay for the best Facebook ads person. But if you hire someone, give them the responsibility, let them learn and let them figure things out, eventually, one, they'll become a lot better than you, and two, they'll become great.
For me, personally, delegation is a mindset to have. And sometimes, like you say, we want to control everything, make everything perfect. But when you find people who can do the same job but better than you, and you have appreciation and salary benefits for them, it makes both people's life better.
Yep.
Like for me, it was a big discovery in Asia to have like people, cleaning ladies, because we don't have it in France. It's very expensive, so not everybody can afford it. But here, it's very affordable.
Mindset. Let me challenge that mindset.
Yes.
When I lived in the UK, I looked at it this way. I could do 1 hour more work and I would make like $30 an hour. And I could hire a cleaner for $10 or $15 an hour to do my cleaning. Would I rather do an hour of cleaning or would I rather do an hour of work?
I don't know about you in UK. I know me in Vietnam. She's amazing. She saves my life every week. So of course, please come help me to be better in my work by helping me to be better at my home. Yeah.
Right. I had a simple calculation. Mm-hmm. So when I worked corporately, one of the things I looked at was my transportation. Now I could take the bus like everyone else, and I'd spend about an hour and a half every day. So 45 minutes to work, 45 minutes home. Or I could spend about 30 minutes a day taking a taxi each way. Now the cost of 2 taxis was less than what I made in 1 hour. So reality is I could work 1 hour more, take a taxi each way and have more money, actually spend more time doing work that I relatively enjoyed, and fundamentally get a better outcome, right? So even in your personal lives, like, yes, it's definitely easier to do those things when you're living in a lower cost country like Vietnam, but even living in France, if you actually look at the return of not having to do things that you don't enjoy doing. So if you hire a cleaning lady, if you hire someone to come and wash your car, if you hire people to do things and you spend that time doing things that you like doing, but hopefully you're very good at what you do, so you get paid more than you actually pay these people. So for me, I know that I would any day I've ever wanted to do an hour more of my work versus an hour of cleaning. Like every day I've been on this planet, I would make that choice always.
But nothing wrong with the clean. But I do like also the idea that you say it's like elevate people and elevate yourself. You don't give them tasks. You give them responsibilities. Like my cleaning lady, every time she comes, I just tell her how much I'm grateful for her to exist, like how much she make my life easier, because the 2-3 hours that she spend cleaning my house, I will not be so efficient in my work, in my relationships, in everything if she was not there. So the idea for me of delegation, it has something noble almost. It's like also saying that we need each other. Like I need your skills, I need your time, I need your dedication. Please help me. So I think it's something very human.
And fundamentally, I mean, it's the same thing, right? Like when I hire people, I hire a lot of people that sometimes are not yet better than me in a certain skill. But that doesn't mean I can't give them a responsibility, let them grow. Because the whole point is that if I sit down and spend my time doing it, then there's other things I'm not doing that everything else being equal is probably more valuable. So even hiring people who are maybe initially not at my level, if they spend all day, every day working on that, eventually they will get much better at it than I am, right? So.
And how can we delegate effectively in a way that you get free time, to also get a good return on investment? If there's someone that we delegate to make mistakes, basically how to handle this?
The way all people learn is by making mistakes, right? So we mentioned video people. I'm sure that at some point, some mistakes will happen. At some point, maybe some camera runs out of battery, whatever. Stuff happens, right? And what happens is you learn from it, right? Now, if you've been doing it for 25 years, you maybe have learned that every time before you do something, you check the battery, right? But the whole thing is everyone makes mistakes sometimes. Even I do it, right? A lot of mistakes. And that's how we learn. So the whole thing is that even when you have people that are not necessarily the most experienced or the best in their field yet, they still learn from making mistakes. So in the end of the day, I always look at it. I could have one business where I did everything 100% the way I did and make a little bit of money. Or I could have multiple businesses where everything is not run the way I would necessarily do it, but the outcome in conjunction is significantly higher. Right? Even within one company, if you're looking at it, if you're doing everything, if you get sick, money stops coming in. So the one thing with my clients, the one lesson I always have with them, or the one challenge I have with them is when you can take a month holiday and your company is grown bigger while you were away, then you're on track then you're on the right track. Right? So when your company actually grows and acquires new clients while you're not there, that enables you to, that puts you in a position that you want to be in, right? Because that fundamentally means that your team can do things and execute on things even when you're not there. Now, that doesn't mean you're useless, because often you spending time in it can probably be significantly more helpful, but it means that you can actually go in and focus on the things that makes the most sense, that are the most important. That, again, if you want to take 6 months holiday, do it. But when you want to put your effort into the business, you can do the things that really, really needs you, and you can do the things that really makes a difference.
And how to find the right people to delegate? Like what should be the criteria to select them?
So fundamentally, when it comes to people, there's sort of 2 or 3 things you look for. And fundamentally for me, it's always attitude, mindset, and just general determination, right? So many people look at resumes and skills, and in most cases, skills are significantly less important than the actual personality, the individual, right? Are you comfortable around the people? Do they seem like nice people? Do they come across to you in a way that you're comfortable communicating with, right? A lot of time, I spend a lot of time on behavior and putting the right people into the right roles. Honestly, that's a little bit secondary compared to finding the right type of people to have in your business. Because when you look at any company, most of it is down to company culture, right? You only need one bad person to ruin everything, right? Like one bad person who have very bad habits, or, very rude or very unpleasant for the rest of the team, can kill the whole team morale in no time. Right. So the most important thing when looking for people is finding people with the right mindset, the right attitude, And then secondary is actually start looking at their behavior and understanding, is this something that would naturally fit this individual?
Do you have some types of people actually?
So there's a fundamental base type of individuals, right? I privately use a framework called DISC, and that's basically what I utilize to understand people's behavior types and so on. There is a bunch of personality types out there. There's a bunch of different tools that you can utilize. What I personally like about DISC is the fact that just by looking at another human being, you can very, very quickly pick up who are they. So I always say when a stranger sits down next to me on an airplane that I've never met before, I can tell them things about themselves they're not aware of, right? And learning to understand behaviors really makes you significantly better at putting the right people in the right seats, right? So sometimes you hire great people, but they're not really given the right responsibilities to shine the most, right? And yeah, so that's a lot of what I spend my time when I'm training people and entrepreneurs and so on, and in how to hire people. I spend a lot of time on that.
And besides delegation, what can we do to improve our management style?
Fundamentally, personal development. So again, as a manager, your role is not to be perfect. We all make mistakes all the time. Your role is to learn and grow as an individual, because you want to set that example for your staff. You want to set the example of I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm developing. And I think that's the number one most important thing. If your staff seeing you grow, that is more likely to make them want to grow, right?
Well, thank you so much, Mats, for this advice, method, techniques. I think it's really precious, and I hope you guys have enjoyed talking about delegation. Before we separate, I have one last question for you, as you may know already. According to you, what can we do to have a better quality of life?
Yeah. And in terms of quality of life, I'll look at it from a delegation perspective, right? So actually back to what we alluded to earlier, spend more time doing the things that you appreciate in life. So a lot of the time we have obligations, we have things that we do because we feel obligated to. So I would use good examples as it's the neighbor's 70th birthday, and because you're the neighbor, you feel obligated to going. Learning to set boundaries and learning to utilize your time where it makes the most sense to you is a huge game changer, both in terms of your happiness, but particularly in terms of your energy and your time.
Well, that's very good. Somebody told me that setting boundaries is like setting walls with doors, basically.
Yep, that makes sense.
Thank you, Mats, for coming back on the show. It was a pleasure to see you again. Thank you guys for following us. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't hesitate to comment, like, share, and let us know what you think about the topic of delegation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.